Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise and speak on behalf of the official opposition New Democrats about the important news recently of the tentative agreement reached between Canada and the European Union regarding a comprehensive economic trade agreement. Now, there's been a little bit of confusion about the New Democrats' position on this, mainly because the Conservatives are attempting to confuse Canadians about what the official opposition's position is. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, because I don't think that that helps the debate on such an important issue in this country, and it certainly doesn't speak well of the political process in this country when politicians are actively trying to mislead Canadians about positions of parties on important subjects such as this. New Democrats welcome progress towards a comprehensive new trade agreement with the European Union. We believe in expanding and diversifying our trade relationships, particularly to reduce our dependence on the United States. As important as that relationship is, we believe it's healthy for our economy to have a diversified trade relationship with many different regions and countries in the world, because we believe that's important for Canadians' economic security. The NDP has long maintained that Canada should have deeper economic relations with the European Union. These are democratic countries with some of the highest environmental, safety, and human rights and labour standards in the world. New Democrats have said all along that when it comes to trade deals, however, details matter. Unfortunately, Conservatives have kept Parliament and Canadians in the dark throughout the negotiations. Talks have been conducted in secret, unprecedented secrecy, with an unacceptable lack of transparency. And despite the recent announcement of a deal, the government still has not shared the text of this agreement with Canadians. In fact, we don't really have a deal yet. We have an agreement in principle. And as we speak right now, negotiations are still continuing in Europe over some of the substantive issues with this agreement. As any lawyer knows, an agreement to agree is no agreement at all. Significant concerns have been raised about a potential deal's possible effects on a range of Canadian interests that have been raised by a number of stakeholders in Canada. The future of Canada's dairy farmers, the ability of local governments to pursue economic development, the liability of taxpayers to international lawsuits by multinational corporations, the ability of government to legislate in the public interest, increases in the cost of prescription drugs. These issues and others all remain big question marks. Now, we know that there are advantages and compromises in every negotiation. New Democrats will continue to take what we believe is the only responsible approach. We will wait until the full text of the agreement is released. We will analyze its contents carefully, and we will engage in wide consultations with a diverse range of stakeholders, stakeholders ignored by this government, including industry sectoral groups, labour, municipalities, academics, ordinary Canadians, and First Nations, to find out what their views are about this agreement so that we can find out how this agreement may impact their interests. Now, I just want to say that the numbers that the Conservatives have been floating about the number of jobs and GDP growth of CETA are at best speculative and at worst gross exaggerations. What is undeniable is that they are 4 years out of date and based on modelling that has been demonstrated to be unrealistic. For instance, for any Canadian watching, it assumes that Canada has full employment and an unemployment rate of 0%. Now, that is a ridiculous fiction in economic terms, and it shows why we have to be very careful about the spin that's being put on from this government. I'll conclude by saying this Prime Minister has, charitably speaking, been having some serious problems with his credibility recently when he stands up in this House and says the NDP is opposed to CETA, when in fact our position is that we will wait and see what the details are and make up our mind when we have a responsible examination of its impact, is absolutely doing a disservice to this chamber and to the Canadian public. Thank you.